Oh, it's so exciting. And perfect timing for Halloween.
It is.
Did
it really
COVID
is.
make it push back at all, or was this originally your plan? I mean, obviously
It
not
was
entirely virtual, but...
Right. No, other than that, it was actually our plan. Always Halloween was a targeted time because it just felt like the perfect fit. And then in addition to the fact that the upcoming election and the stuff that we're talking about and all of that. And we're so excited about modern films too, because they are an awesome female-based distribution company. Our project is actually the first time they've gone worldwide. They usually release in UK and Ireland. They are have the most incredible taste in movies. They just released Werner Herzog's new film, and they are releasing Viggo Mortensen's directorial debut. And they're innovative in the way that they think about everything, so they've been a perfect fit for Dev and I. And they always do, they're doing the traditional forms of release, but also thinking outside of the box, and they do partnering events and get to do these screenings, which is one of the things that appealed so strongly to us, because we want this dialogue. And then when Dev and I came up with the idea of having New York Comic Con come in, that's something that's never been done before, and they were really excited about it, and so are we, because it's the first time. People usually go to a Comic-Con and they'll see a panel for something that will later, they'll buy a ticket. Is happening right then, where we can all watch together, and then we can all talk about it. We can have a Q&A and have people interact and talk about it. And it's really revolutionary, and it's exciting because I think it's a big direction that we're all going to go in. I mean, even before COVID, theaters were originally closing and stuff. And
Hi.
It was a really good interview. It sounded great. We really love your analysis of things. It's amazing. Yeah. And you did catch everything. And one of our favorite moments is with where Charlene says about the vampires in True Blood. And she says, people are often caught at the peak of their physical beauty. And that's an American obsession. And it really is kind of...
Yeah, Anne Rice's vampires follow that too.
Yeah. And sort of the obsession with people also doing plastic surgery to try to maintain something, and I think Charlene mentions that as well. And Joss does as well.
Yeah. It was actually very interesting sort of getting takes on things, and there's some great...
Yeah, and then finding out how to script them and how to shape it in terms of, because we sort of, the interviews are almost like a Greek chorus, interspersed through the movie.
Do you know what's really wild, actually? We have there's a friend of ours called Cécile Martet. She's French, and she actually became a therapist because of Juliet's character. She became fascinated and obsessed with Drusilla. But we're going to interview her. We want to do a show called Juliet Landau, How Dare You? Where it's all like challenging, because people are like, how dare you?
Because whenever you talk about things that people often go like, how dare you? And
we're not supposed to talk about that. Well, if you don't, you'll never get better.
Exactly.
There's a French psychologist who used Dracula as the book of a perfect narcissist, and Renfield is the enabler, which is a very interesting...
Yeah, because he's a therapist as well, and he uses it. Yeah,
he uses it as an example of narcissism. I mean, obviously, it's the most David Skull says metaphor. It can be anything you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what the basis of my show is. I look at everything and be like, well, what's a metaphor this time? Let's see if we can figure it out. And it's sort of like, a lot of times I'll look at what the artist intended, but sometimes I can't, or I feel differently or something. But I always am really interested in artists' intentions and what they're striving for, because it's so fascinating to me.
Do you know?
And also how many different ways it can reflect different aspects of our natures.
But you know what's actually interesting? There's this young girl, and she's doing all this Buffy analysis. And I don't know if she's right or wrong. Juliet would know this more than me. But she always says that to Joss, the vampires were straw men. Really, he's a real Nosferatu type of vampire person. And she believes that David Greenwald, who co-created Buffy with him, was much more of an Anne Rice person. And I think Joss really loved Anne Rice. We actually have him on film saying how much he loved Anne Rice. But there is a very interesting thing of how when Juliet and James's character comes in, they become characters in a way they're not before that.
Right. But he actually said that to us. He said that he wanted to create... Like he realized after season 1 that he sort of wanted to create these characters that felt like as sort of rich as the Scooby Gang, and you know, that he felt like that he didn't want them to be strong men, and he needed that, you know, that it was the thing that you'd kind of want to be those vampires.
It's funny.
Well.
Juliet was on stage with James, and they and Joss has always said that they're the Sid and Nancy of the vampire sect, and Juliet was like, "But I'm Sid."
And James was like, wait a minute. No, I thought I was Sid. I was like, no, you were not Sid. You were the blondie one. No.
But you got so much from the film. We're so glad that you saw it. And, you know, we value your opinion greatly, because we watched The Only Lovers Left Alive one you did. And that was a really good analysis.
Oh, thank you. The thing about the Buffy vampires is they don't have souls, right? So how do you have a character without a soul? As opposed to the Anne Rice vampires, which are all soul. So yeah, I could see that.
Although, you know, what's interesting about that, we're supposedly not to, you know, we as if I use that, but no, we're soulless, and yet, you know, it depicted like with Spike and Drew had this epic love affair that was a deep connection. So it's like an interesting thing, like, well, what's a soul? What
even is a soul? Yeah,
right.
And,
you know,
one of the things that's very interesting with Darcel is also a type of person. He's a type of man.
Oh, I meant to say that actually, but
you know, like he's almost, there's that man that's sort of, I don't know if you've ever
like
experienced
the peacock.
He's the peacock. I mean, around him, almost subservient, almost like a pimp. He's almost like a goth pimp in a weird way.
Well, there was that thing that when we were talking, which I didn't say, but the idea that like he topically looks attractive.
Yes.
But what's underneath is not, you know what I mean? So when we were talking about glamorizing, like he's not an ugly, he attracts people. Yeah. Because
But Juliet actually had 3 different people play him.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, she kept
did that on purpose. So that
because she wanted the idea that he is everyone but no one. He's this guy. And he wanted, and there's that weird thing that certain men will do where they will put an identity, like a woman is only this and only has a value at this moment. And Julia, you know, because there's that scene where she goes, when she's walking away, she goes, I say something like, oh, I don't understand, Alex. And she said, oh, what do you say?
Oh, something about
I do. When you get to a certain age, you feel like a used Kleenex. Like, and I think that's a very interesting thing, and I think he feeds into that.
Mm-hmm. He's physically attractive, you know, and he dresses nicely, and he's very cool, but he's not framed that way by the camera or by the film. Like anytime he does appear, it's frightening.
Yes.
It doesn't feel glamorous despite what he looks like. And the fact that he's pretty almost makes it even more frightening to see it that way.
Absolutely. That's exactly. And one of the things that I wanted to play with is that every time Jules is in his vicinity, that there's either things get blurry or things are static. And it's the thing, you know, it's interesting because one of the things that M. Scott Peck says is that when you're around someone who's evil or you know, nefarious or malignant narcissist, you get this weird sense of confusion and revulsion. And I think that's very much so. And so we wanted to figure out, like, how can we make that an experiential thing for the viewer? How can you feel like what that feels like? Because, you know, and in another way, the character's trajectory is a bit like going down a drain. Like it's like a, you know, spiral and a spiral. So all of that stuff, even with the camera work, you know, the instability that starts to happen, like, you know, everything starts in the film very locked off and straight. And then there's a certain point as she's getting more and more drawn in where that changes a lot.
And the nun is Gary Oldman's mother.
Oh, okay.
And you know, one of the other things that Juliet wants to explore was the idea of, in Silence of the idea is that it's a woman saves another woman. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that Juliet's character can't save anyone because she isn't centered enough in herself to save anyone.
Well, I just got chills when you said that. I'm like, oh, it's so deep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the whole idea that also when sometimes you think you're going about trying to save other people, but really you're just trying to save yourself, and your unconscious is doing that, and you're not servicing anyone else if you're not.
Yeah, every time the detective told her don't, she did. You know,
yes.
When who do you think would know better?
Right.
Yeah. And I think there's also, actually, there is one of the things that Sal told us, the real Sal La Barbera, he looked up the statistics. Before COVID, how many active vampire serial killers
I actually forget the numbers.
But it was staggering. You should look that up. It's actually staggering
I've never
how many
thought
people
about that.
kill in the style of a vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
We talked to a criminal profiler about that as well. And it was really surprising.
It was more than 10,000. Mm-hmm. It may even have been in like the 20s. And you just,
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, one of the other statistics that's interesting is we found out that in terms of the thoughts that everybody has, even if you come from the most healthy, loving, stable background, 80% of the thoughts in everyone's minds are negative. And I thought that that's really interesting because we don't, we always pretend like someone says, how are you? And you're going, oh, I feel terrible today. I was like shit and this and that, right? And you're going, I'm great. Like, right? I mean, there's always this whole other thing that's going on inside. And so it was something that we wanted to look at because even the healthiest, people that have been reared in the most healthy environment still have these negative voices that drive them. And, it's nice to let some of those go. The percentage would be nicer. Don't you think it would be like 40% at least?
And you know what is actually interesting? Juliet's parents are only in the movie for 44 seconds.
Yeah, the parents are only in the movie for 44 seconds.
It feels like so much. It's just like, is this going to keep going? Is this going to stop? Like, it's so daunting.
Yeah, we really wanted that feeling of sort of that unrelenting nature of it. But the thing that's interesting is kind of analogous to our lives. You spend, this little amount of time in your family, and then you spend all these years behaving from how you were reared. So like basically it's 44 seconds of a 77-minute movie. And that's sort of the same as what happens in your life. You're with your parents until you're 15, 16, 17, whatever that time period is. And then you carry that with you for the rest of your life. And you try, hopefully you work it out. You don't just keep doing the same negative things.
One of the things that was very interesting when we filmed was watching Juliet go from being subjective to objective. She had to lead the charge because all the other actors had to follow her. She always had to be at the forefront of committing the most, putting the most energy in. But there were days it was really interesting. And I think one of the things I find really exciting about what Juliet's created is so emotional. The movie goes to emotion, and a lot of the people who are watching the trailer it's really weird how we don't have emotion in things.
Yeah.
And now emotion is like at the forefront of what her character goes through.
Well, and also just the idea, certain psychological stuff can be more terrifying than slasher gore stuff. It can be because you feel yourself in it or whatever. But it's interesting in terms of the level of emotion and the response to that has been really strong.
Yeah. And I think losing control, if you got into a situation where you start losing more and more control. And I think one of the things about Darcel's character is he is in control all the time. Everyone's sort of just doing what he wants, which is really weird. Like, you think about it, they go to places because he sends them there. They go back to places because I'm there.
So they get there thinking they caught him and he's got it all set up and ready for them, and he's always one step ahead.
Yeah. And the idea, one of my, Mariana Clavino was in True Blood, the one that is Juliet's friend, who said evil is when, the girl with the bright red lipstick. Mm-hmm. And when she says it's about just not caring, and Kim Newman says it's when you just don't care what you do to another person. I think there is I don't know, she says it's systematic cruelty. And I think the thing that Darcel does with Juliet's character is he starts saying she kind of she cares about this girl she met that was I beat up. So I'm going to take that from her. I'm going to just he is cruel by his nature. And I think Juliet shows you in the movie what that repercussions of cruelty, what it is like to be the recipient of cruelty. And I really love that there's a tremendous price that your character pays,
Yeah, it was interesting going between like directing and then going into these highly emotional scenes and then coming back, having to switch gears all the time to be like making decisions and all of that stuff.
What was funny was, though, that Gary's mum was playing a nun, mm-hmm. but she came to set wearing bright blue eye makeup and lipstick.
It was very, very cute.
Because she was 94 and Gary brought her to set, dropped her off. And
he stayed and he was running lines with her and everything. He was very cute because she always wanted to be an actress. And actually, this is her first performance. And
she was amazing.
Isn't she amazing? She's so expressive and wonderful. But Seth has passed away. So we're actually really touched that we have her.
But Juliet, say how you would direct Kay.
Well, it would be funny because I would go, and action. And then I'd step in the scene and she'd go, are we going to have a go? And I'd say, yes, Kay. So when I say action, we're going to have a go. And I go, and action. She'd go, so now, are we going to have a go now? And I'd be like, yes, we're going to have a go now. And then it was so funny. So finally I just would step in and be like, so we're going to have a go now. And then we'd do it. It was just so cute.
And it was also interesting because she had never acted, she learned it as a block. And Juliet would go, I'd like to pick that line up. And she'd go, no. And really,
we had to do it from the beginning.
You had to do the whole thing.
But she was great. It was fine. It's just, you're used to with actors where you can say, oh, can we take it from this section or whatever? And she was, and I said, no, let's not worry. Like, we can go from the top. She was in her 90s and she was, sharp as a tack. We shot for, I think that day it was like 12 hours. And she afterwards said, do you kids want to go? We were so tired. Like, Kay, aren't you tired? And she said, no, I'm not tired. She was just full of so much energy. It was really amazing.
I'll tell you another thing that was kind of funny was we finished early one day and we had to shoot the Goth Club. And we went to a restaurant called Kabuki, which is on Sunset. And we walked in and
it was funny. So one of our investors was with us. And so we'd gone to dinner afterwards and we were ruminating about what to do because we had the Goth Club sequence. And once we picked the location, it was larger than the original place we were going to shoot. And we thought, oh my God, we don't have enough extras for the scene. What are we going to do? And in terms of our budget, we can't actually hire a lot more extras, but it's going to look empty. It's not going to work. I don't know what to do. So we're sitting there and we're eating dinner. And there were these 4 amazingly dressed, like beautifully turned out people that were all goth, incredible. And Dev goes, well, do you want to go up to them and just see if for any reason, like they'll know who you are, I think, from Buffy, and see if they might want to come. And so really, should I do that? Should I go? So I go up and I'm like, hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt your sushi. And they all said, oh my God, you're Juliet Landau, you're Drusilla. And I said, yeah, I am. I said, I have a really off the wall question. I'm directing my first feature. We're shooting this Goth Club sequence in 2 days, I think it was. We don't have enough people. It's not, so glamorous on a set. Things take really long to do, whatever. And would you guys want to come? And they said, oh, we'd love to come. And we'll bring 25 of our friends.
Oh my gosh.
So they came and they all were dressed. Our costume designer said, oh my God, thank you. You guys look amazing. But what was funny is one of them, Queenie, who was one of the ones who organized everybody to come, she does makeup for a mortician. Oh. And then another one of the group was an accountant, and both of them said, oh my God, it's so boring being on a set. You guys just do things over and over and over. Because we kept going back to one. And they're like, how many times do you do it? And we said, oh, just each sequence, each little bit you do many, many times. And so it was very funny because both of them were like, oh, I think this is so much more boring than accounting. and then working in a mortuary. I was like, really? Wow. Well,
the dead are more exciting than this.
Right.
We actually...
But they turned out really great. Like they were amazing.
And what's actually wild is the blue room, where we call it the blue room, where she's in the room by herself. The first room she's in, that is actually in the 2J. That's the place that Jack Nicholson, JJ Gittes is.
Well, in the 2 Jakes, it's his office. That whole building is his office. So it was funny because we were actually watching it the other night and I was like, wait a minute. That's our set. Like, that's crazy.
But what was really wild
of course, it's redressed.
So it's in the meatpacking district in downtown. And the guy who ran it was a Satanist who owned that location. And
he had like this big devil in his office that was very scary.
But he walked on the set. He walked on the set where she finds the girl hanging upside down. And he goes, he looked at me and he goes, because I had to really talk to him a lot, because that's how he was pretty tough. He gave us a lot of leeway because I became friends with him.
We're the only production he didn't charge for cleanup and stuff, because we actually, besides that, we cleaned up. But even when people do, supposedly he did that, and then because Deb was hanging out.
And I said, "Do you want to come and see the set?" And he walked on the set, and when he walked into that room,
he goes, "This is dark. This is really messed up."
When the Satanist thinks it's messed up, it's serious.
That's right.
The other thing that's interesting is the basement was actually the attic.
Oh, really?
So we actually shot the stuff going down at another point and linked it. And it's funny because even our editor is Patrick Sheffield, and he edited the BAFTA-nominated Tim's Vermeer. And he said, because he wasn't on set, he still is like, I still can't wrap my head around that being an attic. Like, it just feels like it's
feels like you're underground. It's so claustrophobic.
Yeah.
The music, do you know a group called Faith and the Muse? A composer actually was a singer in a band, Monica Richards, and this is her first. She's married to Steve Niles, who did 30 Days of Night.
Faith and the Muse was a goth band.
A goth band.
And yeah, she's amazing.
And we were friends with her, and Juliet just wanted some background music. But Juliet heard Monica's music and was like, "Oh, wow, this is incredible. Can you do a test for me?" And
no, actually it wasn't even that. It was funny because so we were thinking of her for the goth club song and the radio song in the car. And then she came over and she was playing a lot of her music, and a lot of it the whole intro sounded like soundtracks. And she had this one that was recorded in a cave that was this incredible vocal of her, and it was just bellowy and echoey and powerful and primal, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh my God, have you ever scored a movie?" She said, "No." "Have you ever thought about it?" She said, "Well, I have thought about it." I said, "Well, what do you think about doing the score for the movie? Do you think?" And she said, "Well, I'd love to do it. Do you think we should do a test?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do a test and see." And so the first piece of music, the Blue Room with Jules, which we use in the opening, and then it sort of catches up later where you add up what's happening and see it again. She did the Jules theme there, which was the violin theme, and it was incredible. Like, she gave us a few different options, and they were all great. There was one that particularly, which we ended up using, and then it had some sort of part where the music stepped up, and I thought because of the nature of what was happening in the scene with the emotion of the character that it should be stepping down instead, like it should be descending. And so she reworked that bit, and it was just like, oh. And then I said, "Great, okay, you're in, let's do this." And especially because that was a very classical feeling piece, and her band had been, totally like a goth rock band, different kind of music. So I was like, "You're in." And she said, "Well, let's just do another test. I want to make sure that you like it." And so we did the next piece, and I was like, and we worked on it, and we worked in tandem back and forth, and we got it to this incredible place. And then I said, "Okay, great, you're in. Let's do it." And then she said, "Well, let me do another test." And she kept doing it for like 7 pieces, and finally I'm like, "Monica, you do realize we are scoring the movie? Like, we're making our way through the movie." She said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and send the contract. We're going to make this official." And it was just an incredible process. And we also had this concert violinist who lives in Italy named Carlo Dumont. For the temp score, I had used a piece of a quartet of Mozart's Requiem, which was his quartet playing, and I wanted to keep it. So I was trying to figure out, how do I clear the rights for this? It's not a record company. It was a live performance. I spent about 2 weeks searching online, and I finally found his personal email, like on some weird site. And I contacted him, and he said, "Absolutely, you can use the piece." And then I said, "Do you think that you might be interested in playing some of Monica's score so that we could work together on the stuff that she's composed?" And he said, "Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. Did you like the way the quartet sounded? Because that was in this ancient church near Florence, and I can record it there." I was like, "Yes, I love that. I love that so much." And so we worked remotely, where he was playing in the church, and I was directing him to picture from here in Los Angeles, and it just worked out extraordinarily. So there were all kinds of things like that on the movie where people, everybody showed up.
It just came together.
Yeah,
the music is very, and one of the things that it's, one of the things we also talked about was with that music, it was sung to us, and when the mother who confronted Juliet really becomes her in a weird way. Like when you think about where does she end up? She ends up being the person in a room watching a video over and over again to try and find the answers. And we actually
did. So when Janet is the actress's name who plays Patty's mom, and her character is rewatching the video and rewinding, and she says something like, I could have done something, I should have done something. And so when I'm watching the video over and over, I'm sort of mumbling, I could have done something like that. That's sort of under the score a little bit.
Because we also felt like there can, this is really Juliet's idea, but the idea of when something truly traumatic happens, often people are stuck there and they kind of get lost in the mystery. Trying
to fix the thing not fix.
Yeah.
And we actually talked to part of the reason we used for Janet's house, like that wood paneling background, is we kind of wanted it to feel like everything stopped when she lost her daughter, and that sort of like everything. And so she's sort of in, a time capsule almost from that moment, and hasn't been able to progress past it because it's such a tragedy.
We met you in New Orleans, didn't we? Anne Rice's Vampire Ball.
Yeah, I think you were there at the Undead Con talking about the Undead Project.
Undead series. Yeah.
I remember that panel. I have a picture of us together. It's like years back in my Facebook somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I want to see it.
I'll see if I can find it.
If you can find it, that's awesome. That was actually a fun, it was kind of cool to be there on Halloween with Anne. It was a pretty amazing whole experience. Did you get to go to the vampire ball part as well?
I did, but I didn't get the VIP ticket where I got to sit with her. So I was in the downstairs area and she was up. But she did do a different meet and greet at a church. And I did get to go there and have a 5-minute conversation with her and 4 other people. So
she's incredible. She is. She's really, really incredible.
Have you met Charlene Harris?
I have not.
Charlene is the nicest person.
She's so lovely.
And what's funny is...
love her. She's going to be there on the 29th.
She's going to be there and she's going to be on the... But the funny thing about Charlene, Juliet said to her, she said when they were talking, she said, you write these really steamy sex scenes. And she said...
She goes, well, if I'm going to write them, they might as well be good.
And weirdly, she's
so cute. I didn't do her accent very well.
You did, probably.
Vampires, because we have actually.
What is your favorite? We will let you go, but what is your favorite of the Anne Rice books?
The Vampire Lestat is my favorite. I'm actually working on a video right now of all of Anne Rice's books, which can you see them up there on my shelf? So that's all 15 Vampire Chronicles, and I have her other books too. But I'm working on a video right now that's me ranking them all in order of my favorite to least favorite.
Oh, that's really cool. I ended up doing a foreword for Beckett, a thing called Anne Rice's Alphabetary.
Oh, I have that on that shelf back there.
Yeah, it's great. I have it too and he asked me if I would write the foreword for or one of the blurbs or whatever that is, but it's pretty cool because he basically goes through all there's so much characters, it's unbelievable.
Did you read that? Wasn't that amazing about that thing that she has a continual other world going on in her head?
I believe it, to write the way she does. And she writes a book a year, and they're huge books too. It's just
yeah, and so detailed. Like they're like tapestries. They have so many levels.
Yeah, I think they're unfilmable, her books.
She's working on a TV series. She has been for a while, so we'll see if it happens. Yeah.
But I just are so beautiful that no one can be as beautiful.
Physically beautiful.
No one can be as beautiful as the stat needs to be.
It's pretty, a tall order, right? Because it's,
I
wonder if it would be like a young Daniel Day-Lewis would be the perfect Louis or something.
Louis would be, yeah.
Well, Anne Rice said that her ideal Lestat was a young Rutger Hauer. Like 1980s
perfect. Yeah.
Rutger Hauer. But I don't know who would be that now.
No, but he would have been great.
He also has that he's a really interesting actor.
Yeah.
And he makes interesting choices.
And he's so striking looking, but also there's something could be very dangerous. Like Turley is a character that's dangerous. So you would feel like he could encompass all of the aspects of it really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a vast. It would be like the Game of Thrones for the vampire world, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's what she wants. She talked about it a lot on her Facebook, so I was following along and like picking up all the details. And she really wants it to have that epic HBO Game of Thrones feel.
It makes more sense because to try to condense it down into a 2-hour movie, it makes much more sense to have it like Game of Thrones, where you can follow the characters and have all the detail and not be limited to like, we have to pare this down to a narrative that can go from A, B, C, D, within a 2-hour span. I think. And
technology exists now to capture that world that hasn't existed, to capture the vastness of what she wants to do.
Yeah. Although I hope it's done practically more than digital.
Yeah.
Because
we interviewed Stephen Woolley for the series, who produced the
film interview of the and Byzantium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was interesting though, because he said it was, next to Twilight, it's the most successful independent vampire movie ever made.
You forget that Twilight was independent.
I know, you do, because it feels like the studio machine. We also, for our other project, interviewed David Slade, who directed one of the Twilights, but also directed 30 Days of Night as well, which are two vastly different vampire films in nature. But you do think of Twilight as sort of a big studio pictures, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the publicity and the sort of whole feel of them.
It's interesting though, because it's one of those franchises that's kind of just gone away.
Mm-hmm.
The people who really loved it have some from it.
Well, there was so much backlash, but then they just came out with a new book last month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a new Twilight book out.
Have you read it?
No, it's huge. It's bigger than any of the other books. It's the first book retold from the point of view of the vampire.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like his version.
Rashomon. It's a Rashomon day. So is it, have you read the other ones?
I have. I read them back in the early 2000s or
how are they?
2010s. The Twilight books? They're, you could tell it was her first novel. Like the writing isn't that artful. People say they're horribly written. I don't think that's true. I've read a lot of other young adult vampire romance books that are horribly written, and I'm like, these are okay. They aren't bad. If you like vampire romance, they hit every single point that you would want in it.
You know who young adult vampire books I actually liked a lot?
Oh, she's so lovely.
Rachel Kane. Have you ever read any of her books?
What's the name of the series?
What's great about it is the main character is a girl who's super smart and really into science and physics, and so it's what's it called? So there's an intelligence and to it. But it was funny because Dev read actually the first one first, and he was funny because he's going, I can't believe, I forget the
Shane. I
can't believe what Shane's doing.
And he's just that into it.
She did the Glass House, Midnight Alley, Dead Girls Dance.
Morganville Vampire.
I've heard of them, but I haven't read them. It sounds really cool, though.
Yeah, they're actually, for the age that they target, they're really intelligent and they're well done. And the character's not passive in any way. The main girl, she's smart and she's sort of the active person. Like it's really done. I like what she has done with it.
Yeah, they're actually, I think you'd enjoy those because also.
How old are the rest of your kids?
My son is 6 and my baby is 1.5.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, I had actually just had my son when I went to Undead Con. He was like 3 months old at the time.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's amazing. Well, yeah, no wonder you're busy. That's hard. That's 2 ages.
Have you got to sleep yet?
Lot. No, what's sleep? That's why I wear all the makeup.
That delirious state, right? Like, that's funny. Yeah.
It's exhausting. But you've been doing a great job. I can't wait to see what else you come up with.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
thank you.
And I'm so happy to meet you, and
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing you on the 29th. And this was really fun.
It's sponsored by also by New York Comic Con.
New York
Yes,
Comic
yes.
It's pretty cool because they individually inviting 800,000 people, and they are then also promoting on their social media. And tomorrow it's kind of cool. We're going to have, so we had, our exclusive trailer was on Entertainment Weekly, the release of that. But now we're going to have the additional art posters of the rest of our
And they're
cast.
really beautiful.
Are incredible. And so we're going to be doing those painting posters revealed tomorrow on sci-fi-wire.com's Instagram feed or something.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that should be fun too.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you. Take it easy.
Thanks so
Bye.
much. Have a good night.
Bye.
You too.